So my project actually, I got it a bit different there compared to this, but anyway. So my project was, the licentiate project was part of a larger project. The work was part of this multi-scale dimensional geological modeling of the Elevare area. And with the fourth dimension, we mean applying time to 3D model or 3 dimensions. So, but the question is, why do we need to do 3D or 4D modeling in the first place? Well, because it simplifies things. All of us here, we live or we're trapped in 3 dimensions. Our brains can relate and understand objects much easier in 3 dimensions. So, for example, if you look at the geological map and you try to communicate it out to people outside the geological community, especially if you have structures and faults, it becomes already very complicated to explain to someone who's not a geologist. So if you make it in 3D, it becomes straight ahead much more simple. So it's a great visualization tool as well as simplifying things. And it helps us also to understand our subsurface geometries. And if you can understand how our ore bodies and interesting mineralizations are oriented in 3D at depth, we can make smarter and better decisions and save our environment. But 3D and 4D models are pretty complicated and requires quite a lot of data. It requires geological data, it requires geophysical data, it requires maps, geological maps, lithogeochemical data, also age data for the 4th dimension. And we're a team at LTU working on this, and my part is actually to work on the geochemistry and geochronology and the time part of the entire chain, so to speak. And that was the licentiate work I did actually last year. So the study area is approximately 2.5 to 3 hours drive from here, depends on who's driving. And it's the southern portion of northern Norrbotten. So close up of the Elevare geological map. Here we see the Nautanen deformation zone and the other Fjellåsen and Elevare deformation zone, and we're trapped in here in between. And all these black points are actually collected samples by me and by my team, and we have chemically analyzed them. So we were out both in the winter, during the summer, we were underground in the Malmberget mine, also in Aitik open pit. So we collected all different sorts of geological data. And we used very thin, 30 micrometers sections of rock, looking at these rocks at thin section, and also chemically analyze these rocks to better understand their source and the tectonic environment and how they're formed, and also extracted some robust minerals for radiometric dating to be able to precise age these rocks when these rock volumes were formed. And all this information is required to construct 3D models, right? So our findings have summarized them here, what type of rocks we have in the Elevare area. So they are restricted to ultramafic, mafic, layered, intrusive complexes. We have mafic intermediate rocks. We have felsic volcanics, mostly plutonic rocks, also volcanics, of course. And we have some metadolerites, dikes, and sills. And here we can see them. So this is ultramafic, mafic layered rocks. They're located in the southern portion of this northern Norrbotten. They have a really nice primary magmatic layering, and they have very primitive signature. They will tell us something later. Should supposed to come on another picture. So it's the Vassavara intrusive layer, also ultramafic mafic unit, close to the dendrite, but distinctly different in time. We have dioritic rocks located close to this Nautanen deformation zone. And some of these diorites are actually associated with mines, for instance, the Aitik copper gold mine. We have microgabbroic rocks, and these dolerites, which I was mentioning, occurring as dikes and sills, they're occurring over entire area actually. We have felsic plutonic rocks. Actually, before our investigations, not much known about the felsic plutonic rocks. The idea was that we have one type of rock, and as you can see in this geological map, which is based on SGU data, most of the stuff is pink, but that's not really the case, and we need to look at more at that. And from our investigations, we found that we have slightly different rock types. For example, this one in here, this is deformed and has a different character and different age. And then we have some more this pink type granitic rocks, which we have called the Nalujärvi granite. And of course, we have some cyanite. So you see we have quite different rock types in the area that was not known before. Now we can confirm our visual, what we observed in the field by geochemistry, and in this case it coincides quite well. And also we can see what kind of magmatic trends we have, and this tells us something about the environment and tells us about something bigger on what happened on a larger scale. So note these black dots, they're above this line, and this line separates actually two different magmatic series. So if you play further with the geochemical data and try to understand the tectonic environment of these rocks using different graphs, geochemical graphs, here we see that these black dots, which are from the layered intrusive rock, the ultramafic ones, which I showed in the beginning of the picture, they are occurring both in this field and in this field. This suggests that, or this field is related to a volcanic arc setting, and this one is more a different tectonic setting, a within plate setting. So it just basically tells us that we have different type of magmatism in the area. Same goes for felsic plutonic rocks. We have them more or less in the volcanic arc environment. So in summarizing all this, we see, well, we have volcanic arc dominated setting in the Gällivare area. Apart from this ultramafic rocks, which has kind of primitive signature, more black signature. Now, what does this all mean? Well, let's have a look at a very large scale. Let's have a on the very big scale. Let's say we have oceanic crust, and from previous studies we know that at 1.9 billion years we had an oceanic plate subsiding beneath the continental plate, which generated magmatism and formed an arc environment, which is the Skellefteå district. And our interpretation from this data is that, well, we're not that far away from this, and the Norrbotten must be a back arc environment where we had stretching of this continental crust in response to this 1.9 subduction, creating open space and large structures, allowing the asthenospheric material to come close to the surface. And these are large and huge bodies and very hot. And these can drive, or these are excellent sources for driving hydrothermal fluids, creating ore deposits, for instance, porphyry kind of deposits, which we have in the Gällivare area, for example, the Aitik deposit. So all this information is valuable in creating 3D models, of course. And to create 4D models, of course, we need time. And this is also important understanding the evolution of the Gällivare area, for instance. So we dated some of these rocks, which you can see on this map. All these black dots are dated. And straight ahead, we see that we have two different colors. The black colors, both the mafic and felsic rocks, they're approximately showing formation close to 1.88 or 1880 million years. And these red, the information in red, also felsic and mafic rocks, forming close to 1800 million years. If we put them on this type of graph, Concordia graph, we see kind of really nice split between 1800 and 1900. So this tells us that we had two magmatic events in the Elevar area. And if you put our information, which is in the brown here, into more what's known regionally, we see that both are quite nicely related to subduction at 1800 and subduction at 1900, apart from these two outliers, which suggests that perhaps we had late pulses, magmatism which was related to this, but perhaps later pulses. So in the first episode of magmatism at around 1900, we had an extensional event in the Elevar area which created these ultramafic layered rocks, and we had both generation of felsic and mafic rocks, and this is related to the formation of perhaps porphyry copper type deposits. And the second deformation, or the second magmatic event, was also related to subduction, to 1.8 subduction, and also generated felsic and mafic rocks. And in some studies it indicates that it remobilized some of the ore in the high-tech area, or perhaps even added some ore in the Elevar area. So taking all this into account, when creating 3D models, it becomes really important. So I will continue working on the Malmberget rocks, for instance, constraining ages on those, and also look at the isotopic signature of the Malmberget rocks, for instance, and also looking at the role of the plutonic rocks, for example, the dendrite, and how it's related to an ore formation process. For instance, this is a 3D model, part of a 3D model of the Elevar area, where you have the dendrite here, and you can nicely see the extent of it towards the depth, and kind of model for the Malmberget deposit. So I'm interested to see what's their relationship at depth, and I will also continue with hafnium isotopic signatures, actually, to see their source. So this is what actually I'm doing, and all this is getting important when you're doing 3D and 4D models. So thank you so much for listening.